Happy Friday, damnation, and welcome to a special edition of the Danielle Moodie Show because Wajahat is traveling and democracy-ish. Dear friends, will be back on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So I decided, fuck it. It's not like I'm not tired and the world isn't going to hell in a handbasket. And the president of the United States didn't wake up and decide to post the creepiest fucking AI video to date. So lots to talk about. So glad that you all are here. Hope you have your coffee ready or matcha tea or whatever it is that gets you through on this Good Friday. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends, special edition. Let's get into it. Good afternoon, damnation, and welcome to a Friday edition of the Danielle Moodie Show. Like I said at the top, Wajahat is traveling, so it's just me. And I asked you all if you wanted me to go live today, and I appreciate everyone responding in the comments section as well as on yesterday's live. So here I am. And I begin today's, you go to bed, right? Some people say their prayers, some do meditation, others have a nightcap, some do all of the above. And you think to yourself, I hope tomorrow is better, right? You got to find something to grab onto. And then you wake up to this. You wake up to the President of the United States on his own account posting the most absurd, disturbing video that I'm going to play for you all because 25th Amendment, anyone? Anyone? Is there anyone that still believes in the Constitution? Anyone? Anyone? Because holy God. That's what the President of the United States posted overnight on his broke down social media platform, Truth Social. He showed Russ Vought, who is the architect behind Project 2025, as the Grim Reaper. He showcased Democrats as a bunch of babies not making any sense or saying anything worthwhile for anyone to listen to. For, I don't know, 2 years, many who were actually paying attention in independent media, when Project 2025 was dropped in 2023, on the Heritage Foundation's website said, maybe folks want to pay attention to this. Maybe you want to look, because the bond villains have actually provided their strategic plans to you. So you don't have to guess what they're going to do. And you can absolutely prepare in advance on what your reaction will be. You can plan in advance to figure out how you're going to thwart this plan from being executed if, in fact, Donald Trump became the president again. But evidently, no one took this seriously, this 900-page plan that was sitting for free on the Heritage Foundation's website. Everybody, apparently, everyone with power, everyone with the ability to create a strategic war room, all of those fucking people sat around, pardon me for saying, with their dicks in their hand, doing absolutely nothing. So now fast forward, Donald Trump becomes president for a second term and his final term. They implement the plan. By the way, folks, that plan is already 48% completed. By the way, inside of Project 2025 was the plan to shut down the government so that they could do the rest quickly, because clearly Donald Trump is unwell and they need to get what was a 4-year plan done in the next few months. So when I listen to folks on MSNBC, aside from maybe Rachel and Lawrence, they didn't start talking about Project 2025 until like 6 months before the election. Meanwhile, again, I remind you, it was completed and on the Heritage website in 2023. There was absolutely no excuse during that time for Democrats not to figure out, create their own Project 2025, Project Future, that was combating each and every single point of what do we do? How do we get prepared? Instead of, again, sitting around nasal fucking gazing and like, oh, I wonder how we got here. Oh, I guess we'll go for a meeting in the Oval Office and like, wave our finger at Donald Trump and then he'll back off. Take a listen to what was said most recently on MSNBC.
A champion of the unitary executive theory, which suggests that the president should have absolute power over the entire federal government, basically. That he should be able to control independent agencies, that he should be able to populate the civil service with loyalists and purge the federal government of anybody who's not on board with his agenda. This government shutdown is creating the perfect storm for him to finally implement his agenda. He is getting the opportunity to basically lay off, fire potentially thousands of federal workers who he sees as not being sufficiently dedicated to, loyal to the president's policy agenda. And that won't just be a temporary change. It'll be a pretty significant power grab by the president that could remake the federal bureaucracy for a long time go into the future.
Let me bring you to today. President Trump posts on social media he's meeting with Vought today, quote, to determine which of the many Democratic agencies he recommends to be cut and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent.
Donald Trump told us that he wanted to be a dictator. Donald Trump told us he wanted retribution. Donald Trump lied about not knowing anything about Project 2025, but as he tweets out today, he's fully aware of what it is because it is executing a strategy within his own administration. This moment right now, this shutdown is part of the plan. It works. It may just happen to time out a certain way, But that's always been the end game, to stress test the system to the breaking point where we now at a situation where they will indiscriminately fire thousands, hundreds of thousands of federal employees with no intent of bringing them back, and certainly consolidating that power in Donald Trump. Folks, this is the big setup for 2028. Don't be stupid. See what's in front of you, because it's happening, and they expect by the time we get there, you will be immune to any charges that this is fascism, that this is not the American way, this is unconstitutional.
You know what's funny, and not funny, haha, but just funny, is that a majority of people thought Project 2025 was a joke. They thought that Project 2025 wasn't real. And I'm confused because I'm like, who would waste money in putting together a 900-page plan for remaking America that wasn't serious about it happening? Now, I've said to you before, do I believe that Donald Trump won this past election fair and square? I absolutely do not. I believe that he had the help of Elon Musk, because no other president has ever won every single battleground state, right? You win some, you lose some in order to get to the 218 electoral votes that you need. Donald Trump won all of them. And he was talking about Pennsylvania well before the polls had even closed. So that being said, this was always the setup. This was always the plan. This is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is about cult versus the people. This is about fascists versus the rest of us. Because I'm going to bring you stories today that if you did not hear about them, you need to know about what is happening right now. What they've already been capable of doing. And so folks want to continue to say things like, oh, this can't happen, or this won't stand. Or I read a post and somebody in the comment section said, God, I can't wait until Democrats are back in control. And I'm like, what part of reality are you not operating inside of? There is going to be no midterm election. There is going to be no presidential election in 2028. So all of this posturing about what's going to happen when Democrats are back in control, we are fucked. And I say that not because I want people to feel like to lay down and allow it to happen, but I'm saying there are other mechanisms of taking back power, and it's not going to come through an electoral process. That's what I'm saying. I'm not telling people to lay down and like don't commit to local elections and don't commit to what can be controlled still right now inside of Democratic states. But the whole of this, the national, is absolutely fucked until the people of these United States have decided that they have had enough and decide to push back. And that pushback to me looks like a national strike. That pushback to me looks like everyone saying we're bringing this capitalist, extractive, oppressive machine to a fucking halt. That's what it looks like. But until enough people have experienced pain and suffering and realize that it isn't the undocumented person that's the cause of it, that it's not the fucking trans kid that's the cause of it, that it's not the black person that's the cause of it, that it is the oligarchs and the fascists that are the reason why your life now sucks 8 months later and is getting continually worse, until enough people, and I mean enough white Americans, take the fucking sleep out their eyes and recognize that you have been had, and these culture wars have been created to distract you from the people that have been taking from you and have allowed you to believe that your whiteness is always going to protect you. But when those jails are full and those detention centers are full, folks, they're coming for you. Everybody's on borrowed time. because fascism, the empire, comes for everyone. So folks need to wake the fuck up. Like, wake the fuck up and move outside of this childish fantasy that there is going to be some heroicism, like in a Hollywood movie, where some, valiant warrior comes in on horseback and saves you from the ravages of autocracy and dictatorship. That is Hollywood bullshit. What stops dictators and fascists is a united people, a united country across race and age and ethnicity and religion and gender and orientation. That you realize that we are not each other's enemy, that we want the same things, but that these people that are in control right now, that are puppeteering you, stoking your racism, stoking your misogyny, they're doing it because those are the tools of fascism. Stop falling for the bullshit. And it seems that some may be having alarm bells that are going off. Because right now, folks are recognizing, contrary to what Democrats are telling them, contrary to what Republicans are telling them, that the Republicans are the ones that are responsible for this government shutdown. So I want to play for you my guy. I love this guy on CNN. One, because his accent is just like so New York. It is just extraordinary.
Americans blame more. They blame Republicans. The New York Times, by 7 points, they blame Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump. Marist, look at that. Blame Trump and Republicans by 12 points. How about Washington Post? By a 17-point margin. When you look at the data, what you're actually seeing is that more Americans are blaming Republicans than Democrats, which I think really goes against the conventional wisdom, because a lot of folks are saying, hey, Democrats are so divided. But at this particular point, Americans are placing the blame on the Republican shoulders, at least the plurality of them are.
All right, so looking at this, does this match up to what we see historically? Like, how is this different or the same?
Yeah, this is what I think is so notable here, is we can go back over time, and this is actually a pretty familiar story. What are we talking about here? Blame more at the start of shutdowns. 95, 96, they blame the Republicans more by 16 points. 2013, blame the Republicans more by 10 points. 2018, 2019, blame the Republicans more by 14 points. And right now, on the average poll, you see that the American public are blaming Republicans more by 12 points than Democrats. So this actually lines up with what we've seen historically. When the government goes in the shutdown, at least in prior occasions, and in this one, what we see is that more Americans are likely to blame Republicans than Democrats, which again, it's why the polling right now doesn't exactly strike me as surprising, despite the fact that Democrats might be messy. Republicans are the ones who are getting more blame, because that is what has happened, at least historically speaking.
And also because Democrats are like, look, they have all three branches of government.
Correct. That's exactly. I think that's so notable, right? It's the Republicans are the ones who have the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency.
Yeah. All right. So what about, at the beginning versus the end of these shutdowns? Because things get really awful for so many people. People notice the services are cut, but you also have the big furloughs. What do you see there?
Yeah, I think this is notable, right? I think there might be a lot of Republicans who would say, okay, these are early days yet, right? This is early days yet. But what happens at the end of the shutdown? Does, in fact, the blame change? Well, historically speaking, no. Who gets the blame at the start of the shutdown has ended up being the ones who get the blame at the end of the shutdown. 95, 96, GOP. 2013, GOP. 2018, GOP. Look, it's early days yet. Maybe history will be bucked in this particular situation. But historically speaking, if you're being blamed at the start of a shutdown, you're getting blamed at the end of it. And right now, it's Republicans who are being blamed at the start of this one. History ain't exactly too kind to those who are blamed at the start of shutdown.
So those are the facts right now. But we know that Republicans don't really care about facts, right? We know that you can't bring, right, people you can't bring an infographic to people who believe that the rapture was coming last week, right? Wasn't that last week that the rapture was supposed to come, right? So when you have people that are operating inside of a delusional fantasy, it is really hard to say to them, well, hey, you're being affected for this reason and this is what's happening. But it is still encouraging, because if you notice right now, all over corporate mainstream media is, in fact, every single Republican going on television, from JD Vance to the rest of them, lying about Democrats shutting down the government because they want to provide health care to undocumented people, which is a lie, which is an absolute lie. But instead, once again, of Democrats being out front on knowing that Republicans were going to try and put together this shutdown, they're on the defensive, as per usual. But folks, I want to bring you a story that happened earlier this week, Tuesday night. And I want to tell you that it is probably one of the most painful stories that I have read as of late. Because, again, this is just the beginning. We're just in the beginning stages of what they have planned for America and Americans. And it is this. And I want, to be, I talk a lot about corporate mainstream media and their complicity. I was so happy to see that when I put in Chicago ICE raid, that this article that I'm going to be quoting from came from People magazine, people.com, right? That this is not something that is in just the local papers or just wherever, that it actually has made it into what is largely seen as an entertainment rag. Because all Americans need to see what the fuck is happening inside of their country, and not think that this is just happening in some distant place. ICE agents rappel from helicopter because they think that this is a fucking game. They think that this is some type of fucking video game that they get to play in real life, that they get to play real life G.I. Joe. These are fucking ICE agents, right? Thinking that what? Chicago is Afghanistan? It is Iraq during the war? Rappel from a fucking helicopter in overnight Chicago raid, dragging kids, children, babies from their beds to U-Hauls. When people returned to their homes, they came back to broken windows, broken furniture, medicine dumped out on counters, refrigerators wide open, food strewn about, clothing strewn all over the place. This was not a terrorist operation. This was a terrorizing operation to strike terror into the hearts of Black people and brown people in Chicago, to let them know that they are not safe. It does not matter that they took Black American citizens into custody, into ICE custody. So again, for those folks and some Black folks who believe that, oh, they're just going to go after the undocumented, they're going to go after the brown folks, will be fine. The Department of Homeland Security said federal agents from various agencies arrested 37 people without legal immigration status during an overnight raid, plus, just so you're clear, plus at least one U.S. citizen. Eyewitnesses described children, including some who were naked, being separated from their mothers and held in vans. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson have condemned the federal response, saying it is not making the city safer. So here are the details. Overnight on Tuesday, September 30th, federal agents from different agencies raided an apartment building on the south side of Chicago. South side of Chicago, for those who do not know, is a largely Black area of Chicago, the nation's third largest city by population. Armed federal agents in military fatigues busted down doors, pulling men, women, and children, some of them naked, from their apartments, residents, and witnesses told the Chicago Sun-Times. A spokesman for the Department of Homeland Security, which is now a terrorist operation, said that 37 people were arrested, that the location, which is, again, I'm just going to take everything that this administration says and say that it is a lie, and say that it is bullshit, and say that it is made up, concocted fucking stories so that they can cause as much harm as possible. This location is frequented by Tren de Aragua and members and their associates. Sure it is. Sure it is. Just like the 235 men who were kidnapped from the United States and sent to El Salvador's CCOT prison, that before CBS was taken over by MAGA officials, 60 Minutes had reported that, 80% of those people were absolutely innocent, have never committed any crime whatsoever, and that the 20% or 15% that may have, it was like parking violations and speeding tickets, but they were sent to the most notorious terrorist prison in the world. So excuse me if I don't believe anything out of this administration's mouth about what areas particular gang members are going to. Again, this is what citizens of these United States walked back into after their apartment building was terrorized and ransacked by a group of ICE thugs. Ebony Sweets Watson, who lives across the street from where the raid occurred, said she saw what seemed like hundreds of agents outside of her front door. She said she witnessed agents dragging residents, including children, some naked or improperly clothed, out of the building and into U-Haul vans. Children were separated from their mothers, she said. It was heartbreaking to watch. Even if you're not a mother, seeing kids coming out buck naked and taking them from their mothers, it was horrible. This is Trump's America. And you know what I saw as I was like looking to cover this story? People saying things like, yeah, this administration, this regime, they enjoy naked children. So this is just par for the course. Because this is the regime that is protecting pedophiles. You know, I have said before, and I said this during Donald Trump's first term, what do you think happened to those children that were not reunited with their parents after being kidnapped by the Trump regime the first time around? Because it was very convenient that in red states, one, they rolled back child worker protection laws. And then they also rolled back the age of marriage and consent, conveniently around the time that Donald Trump's first administration was kidnapping children and separating them from their parents, hundreds of which have still never been reunited. And I am convinced that many have been trafficked and abused. Because that's what this regime is about. Most recently, yet another MAGA pastor has just been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl in the 1980s. Of course, he's only going to serve 6 months. 6 months in jail. They talk about pedophiles all the time because that is what this movement is filled with. And don't take my word for it, because there are former white evangelical Christians, right, who speak publicly now about the white evangelical Christian movement and how it is filled with pedophiles, how it is filled with child brides, how it is filled with domestic violence and abuse. And that's how they keep their hold on their women and their families. It is sick. But these are now the people that are in charge of this country. This is now their Christian fascist wet dream that they are getting to live out. And again, it doesn't matter what color these children were. They should all be considered our children, because it's those children today, and then it is your children tomorrow. This is about restoring our collective humanity. Because my God, I have felt so sick and fucking disgusted this week, so unwell at the levels of inhumanity that we are willing to tolerate as a country and as a world. The things that we are willing to just scroll over and just say, well, it's not me, it's not happening to me. It will. The longer that we tolerate this, the longer that we allow it to sit, the more it seeps in. You should not need to be a parent in order to know that babies should not be ripped from their beds naked and zip tied by quote unquote federal agents. It is disgusting. It is a sin. It is a fucking disgrace. And if you're not outraged, if you're not nauseous, then you're not paying attention. Let me take a breath, because that story, I told you all, this week, I really hit my limit. Do you know what I'm saying? And I need to, it has been a while, maybe like several months, since I'd spent like days in a row crying. But this week, like really, really got me. From the absolute disgraceful meeting of our military brass, the raid on the Chicago apartment, the humanitarian sailing on the flotillas towards Gaza being captured and brutalized and now sent to a prison in Israel. Like, I reached my capacity this week and have felt sick, just sick. Switching gears. Folks, I also know that this show has now attracting much more trolls. And there's only one beautiful moderator, Susan, and myself, who looks over into the comment section trying to keep things clean and nice. When you see things, try and alert folks, but know that one, I'm hosting the show while trying to watch the chats, and Susan is one person. So do your best to alert her and alert myself to folks that you see, because I'm trying to keep this a safe place as possible. But know that there are times when it is very difficult to do so. So bear with us. Switching gears. Let me tell you that this farmer's story just really gets me. Because the farmers right now are going bankrupt. And sadly, and I take no, like, there is just some of them are taking their lives because their entire lives and families, ability to thrive rests in their farms. So I want to play for you this video. I can't stand Katie Tur, but this video was making the rounds again. And I want to play it of this Arkansas farmer and what he and his fellow farmers are experiencing right now.
Well, we've got a real disaster with this tariff deal. I mean, we produce 40% more agricultural products in this country than we can consume domestically. 1 in every 4 rows of soybeans in every field in the entire United States of America has to go abroad. China is the largest importer of soybeans in the world. They import 61% of the world's market. Last year, we sent around 12 billion, I think $14 billion worth of soybeans the year before. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country.
0?
So we went from 12 billion to 0.
Where are they buying the soybeans?
Brazil. You see, we lost 42% of our market share in the first tariff war. In Trump's first tariff war, the Chinese went to buying their soybeans from Brazil. They invested billions of dollars in Brazilian infrastructure. They have moved into Africa, and they're going to commercially farm in Africa. Since we left with USAID, they moved their Belt and Road program into Africa. So we've pretty much lost the Chinese market share. If we got 100% of the soybean business, Katie, for every country in the world except for Brazil and Argentina, we would still only have half the soybean business that China is.
Are you getting 100% of everything else?
Yeah, if we got 100% of everything else, we would still only have half the Chinese business.
Well, what are you?
If they got 100% of everywhere else, they would still only have half of what they were able to get from China, because China, right, turned around and said, okay, bet. Based on the tariff. So they used to come to the United States for their soybean crops, because the United States, I believe that I read, were like $12 or something like that, like a bushel cheaper. But as it turns out, then the Brazilians, as it turns out, Donald Trump's tariffs now make the Brazilian soybeans like $2 cheaper. So they're like, why would we continue to invest our money over here when we don't know from administration to administration how our prices are going to change? We'll just build up our infrastructure over in Brazil and in countries in Africa, because guess what? They're going to welcome us in, because they've lost billions of dollars because USAID is gone, right? So they need the resources. So what kills me, though, honestly, What kills me, though, is that then, so get this, the farmers are now going bankrupt. The soybean farmers are going fucking bankrupt. And now Trump turns around and says, as they're with their handouts, talking about give us some welfare, right? Some relief. Donald Trump goes ahead and offers $20 billion to Argentina to bail out their government. Trump offered to prop up Argentina's economy and the political future of embattled President Javier Milei, as has drawn the ire of farmers and lawmakers who consider this an ill-judged use of American resources. What else is new? Milei, who has led the country since December 2023, is now facing off against several threats to his free market movement, including the recent electoral successes of his Penoris rivals and depletion of his country's foreign reserves. Treasury Secretary Bessent, meanwhile, offered a $20 billion swap line and other forms of assistance to help stabilize the Argentine peso, and said the U.S. remained prepared to do what was necessary to sustain the important strides taken by Milei. So one would believe, again, I'm not always up to date with foreign affairs. There are some countries that I always have my eye on. Argentina is not one of them. But I would have to argue that if Donald Trump is offering to prop you up, you are probably a fascist. I got to believe, right, that if Donald Trump is looking to help you out, you are not a good person. Case in point, Donald Trump wanted to support Eric Adams in the New York City race before he exited. Donald Trump then wanted to support Andrew Cuomo before, and then the people were just like, so you're running as an independent and now the fascist president wants to support you. Clearly, you're not a good guy. So that is what I'm going to take. That is my deduction about the Argentine president, is that if Donald Trump is supporting you, right, and your country is in need of a bailout, clearly you don't know what the fuck you're doing and you're probably a fascist. Those are my thoughts. Following years of inflationary struggles, Milei's presidency and the economic turnaround it inaugurated had been hailed by some, including Trump and his allies, as a model of how slashing federal spending and bureaucracy can steady a faltering economy. So, y'all, make it make sense. So Donald Trump praises the slashing of the federal bureaucracy. So Milei came in and fired everybody and wanted to consolidate power. And now the economy is on the verge of absolutely fucking tanking. If Donald Trump is applauding your economic policies, you are probably one step away from bankruptcy. Because what the fuck does he know about anybody's good economic policies, Mr. fucking bailout himself, Mr. Bankruptcy himself? So I swear to God, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. So while experts are split on whether a lifeline of this sort could address Argentina's structural weaknesses, many believe this might undercut the perceived success of his free market reforms. So this is the thing. This is the gag. Much of the resistance to Trump's offer has come from farmers, particularly soybean croppers, who view Argentina as a competitor and believe the U.S. should prioritize U.S. agriculture before extending lifelines to foreign nations. Quote, "The frustration is overwhelming." American Soybean Association President Caleb Raglid posted to X, quote, "U.S. soybean prices are falling. Harvest is underway. Farmers read headlines not about securing a trade agreement with China, but that the U.S. is extending $20 billion in economic support to Argentina." And just in case anyone wanted or was curious to know how Arkansas where all these soybean farmers are, how they voted in the last election? Well, in 2024, Arkansas voted for Trump over Harris 64% to 33%. I think one of the pictures that I saw, and again, I didn't know if it was AI generated or not, so I refused to post it, but it was a picture of open land, a farm, with a for sale sign, like a bankruptcy sign, and then a Trump Vance sign right next to it. And it said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So unfortunately, you get what you vote for. Because this is how tariffs actually work. It's like pissing into the wind. Anywho, so a couple of things before I close out today. One, a little joke because we need some lightheartedness. So apparently, Stephen Colbert, who has run out of fucks to give, and is on, his show will be off the air, I think, in 9 months, right? Because CBS has not renewed his contract, and he was the first comedian that was fired. But he was fired, but allowed 10 months with like no leash whatsoever. So has been doing the absolute most. So I don't know if you saw the presser this week where JD Vance was asked about the overtly racist postings that Donald Trump has been doing, where he's putting Hakeem Jeffries and other Democrats in sombreros, right? Because he's trying to, again, push the lie that they have shut down the government because they want to give, free healthcare to undocumented people. And we know that this is a lie. And so JD Vance said, I mean, why are we talking about memes? Like, this is, it's a joke. And like, he needs to be able to take a joke. Like, memes are jokes. And that's like what it is. Prepare yourself, because this is what Stephen Colbert, he said, since I giggle so hard. He said, since we heard that JD Vance loves a good-natured, funny meme, so we made one just for him. Y'all, it wasn't just like a meme, like just a picture. Ugh. Stephen Colbert played that on his show that is nationally syndicated. And I mean, what? Like, it's just so fucking obscene. Like, it's just obscene where we are. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you don't find these moments to just like, cry with laughter as opposed to crying just of grief, yo, and it's long too. Like, so I just played like 2 seconds, but I swear to God, it's like a minute long. Just of that and that fucking sound. So you're welcome that I only played a little bit of it. But in all seriousness, I do want to close out with something that I think is really important that I came across this morning on Instagram. And again, like I said, I'm always very honest. And this is why Jared and I do the check-in show that we do on Wednesdays where we're talking about our feelings, right? And we're talking about what it feels like to be trying to live life inside of a fascist government. And it is emotionally taxing. It is physically draining. It is getting increasingly hard. And I know that there are folks who, they feel bad about articulating how bad they are feeling. And so I came across this therapist on Instagram, and I want to share with you her posting. And I encourage you, if you're on Instagram, to follow Nadia Adesi, because I think that her postings are really just helpful. And if you have your own therapist, which I highly recommend everyone do, but I know everyone can't afford, doesn't have insurance, what have you, sharing this with your therapist, because I talk about it with mine all the time. And she writes this: "We are pathologizing people for being affected by a world that is objectively unwell. People are disassociating because it's unbearable. People are anxious because they're paying attention. People are depressed because they're stuck in systems that rob them of safety, connection, and hope. People are angry because they should be. As a therapist, I'm frustrated with my role inside a system that keeps telling people they're the problem, that their pain is a personal failure, that if they just tried harder, breathed deeper, thought differently, coped better, they'd feel okay. I don't want to tell people who are angry to calm down, or people who are numb to feel their feelings, or people who are depressed to reframe their thoughts. Not when the world around them is unsafe. Not when genocide is happening in real time. Not when the cost of groceries has doubled and wages haven't moved. Not when basic needs, rights, and futures are all in question. This isn't pain you can just heal away. This isn't a mindset issue. And the answer isn't to disconnect from your body, your rage, or from the world, just to seem more regulated. This pain is a direct response to the world around you, not a personal failure to cope. And anything or anyone that tells you otherwise isn't helping you heal. They're asking you to stay quiet, to uphold the system that benefits from your silence. If you're angry, channel it into change. If you're anxious, turn it into focus. Let it show you what matters. If you're numb, trust that your body is protecting you until it's safe to feel again. Refuse to enable a system that promotes compliance by pathologizing, I can't say it, emotion. It is a word that I struggle with. Stay connected to your pain, because that pain is proof that you haven't given up. And when we stay with our own pain, we stay open to each other's too. And that's what makes real change possible. This isn't an argument against healing work, self-care, or self-regulation. They matter too. Sometimes they're how we survive the day. Sometimes they're the reason we're still here. And yes, doing the work to better ourselves can be powerful. But we need both personal tools and systemic change. We can't breathe our way out oppression, but we do need the capacity to breathe while we fight for something better. That is from therapist Nadia Adesi on Instagram. And I thought that it was incredibly helpful because I shared it in my stories. and I shared it with friends because it is really hard. Thank you. Somebody just thank you. Pathologizing. It is so, thank you for that, Jenna. There are times I tell you when I'm like, a word I struggle with. But I say this, I shared that because, I was struggling this week. This week was incredibly hard. And I always tell you all the truth. Had a migraine all day yesterday. I woke up with a headache today. Thankfully, it is subsiding now. No medication was working yesterday. No amount of meditation and deep breathing was working for me. And then I came across that post. And, for people that tell me, oh, well, you're always anxious or you're always, have mood swings or like what have you. And it's just like, no, this is not that. Right. And you sometimes, when you're trying to do the deep breathing and going on the walks and, exercising and eating right, and you're still feeling like shit, you begin to internalize that and you feel like a failure. Like, why does everyone else seem to be normal? Why is everyone else able to regulate and I can't? And I think because a lot of people are fooling themselves, a lot of people are pretending. And that in and of itself will hurt you in the long run. So, what I believe she is saying, and I just want to go back to the point where she says, if you're angry, channel it into change. If you're anxious, turn it into focus. Let it show you what matters. And if you're numb, trust that your body is protecting you until you feel safe again. It is extraordinarily important for us to be in tune with ourselves so that we can be in tune with those around us. This is part of the plan and the strategy. Nothing feels normal because nothing is normal. And so I just want to remind us as we head into this weekend not to beat ourselves up. If you are like, you know what I want to do this weekend? Not get out of bed. Don't. If you can, right? Like if you have partners and you have children and, sometimes as, Brene Brown and others has said, like, we're not always 100%. Sometimes that person has 80 and I only have 20 to give, right? And then you switch off. So like if you need to take the time, if you need to take space, if you need to just lay the fuck down, then do that. Right? Because your body, your mind is alerting you to the troubles that you are having, and it does not help anyone if we ignore them. So please, this weekend, dear friends, and every day, right? Every day, because every day is a struggle. And that is the truth. Know that you're not alone. Know that there are people, including myself, that are feeling the same way. Know that this is not something that we can self-help our way out of. This is systemic oppression and violence. But do what you can, right? Control what you can and take small steps that allow you to catch your breath, that allow you to feel again, that allow you to experience joy while you continue to work for justice. And when I am in my darkest places, I think about and commune and talk to the ancestors who had less than what we have now and did the most with what they had. It is not to make us feel guilty, but it is to remind us of the strength and the courage and the bravery that is running through our veins. So tap in. That is it for me today, dear friends, on this special edition, Friday edition of the Danielle Moodie Show. As always, dear friends, I appreciate every single one of you. Ernst, for your continued financial support of this show, the spiritual support, the financial support. Barb, thank you so much. Game Shark, Ms. Wilson, Tina, K Panda from Canada, as always. Laward Warrior, thank you so much. Eternal Energy, Linda, LB, Tara, every dollar helps. Inferno, Mikkel, Tina, Minimalist, Margaret, MJ, Claire, thank you so much. Design Chick, Ms. Wilson again, Jimmy again, TMFJ, thank you. Ghostface Killer, always appreciate you. Motown Mini, E. Schwartz. Oh, wow. You all are just wonderful. Thank you so much. Miss Natty Locks. Oh, you got locks too? Bar, Rick, Spring, thank you so deeply for that generosity. Susan again, Pass the Joint, and Ernst again. Really, really, really appreciate you all. This is independent media. Like I say at the end of each and every show, every single dollar that you provide allows me to create the kind of content with integrity and passion and truth that you deserve. Take care of yourselves this weekend. Take care of each other. Find joy, find sunlight, touch grass, touch plants, cuddle fur babies, and breathe. I will be back on Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern with Wajahat for Democracy Ish, and on at 5 p.m. For the Danielle Moodie Show. Videos go up all weekend, so do check in with us on Saturday and Sunday. As always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you on Monday. Be well.